Okay, then let's call the City of Port Orchard's Council's Finance Committee meeting of May 9th to order. And the first thing we have on our agenda, Jay, you're okay with just listening? So Jay is across from me listening. So the first thing is we have the sales tax and the revenue report. So, Noah?
Yep. So we have another month of collections, and we'll start with sales tax first. You'll see that this is the first month in a long time that we've had a negative year-over-year change. So we collected less sales tax revenue in May 2023 than we did compared to 2022. Overall, though, still positive on the year, 9.4% over our 2022 year-to-date actuals, and approximately 24% over our fiscal year budget. Which feeds into our biennial budget, and which means we've received about 18% of our biennial budgeted sales tax revenue. So overall, still good. Just something to be aware of as we've hit our first negative month in a while.
Yeah, the direction we have to keep an eye on.
Yeah, and we got to remember though, you know, if you look at to budget, we're 23% over budget. We've been experiencing for 3 years now record months every single month. So for us to be 1.5% below, you know, those record months, you know, month over month over month, it's going to happen, you know. So eventually the economy is going to flatten. And
yeah, it's nothing we should be jumping off a bridge over, but it certainly is something that we just need to kind of keep an eye on.
And as we start our next discussion, I just want to point out down in the REIT, our budget number of 800,000, we're going to talk about that, and that looking at the actual for 2022 was far greater than that. And where we're trending, if you extrapolate the 2023 numbers, we're trending to slightly more than $2 million in REIT. What we budget, we've just historically budgeted, we budget $800,000. We're very conservative in our REIT projections, and our budget is $800,000 for each year, and that money is split evenly between REIT 1 and REIT 2 in the collection and budget at 50% REIT 1 and 50% REIT 2. So Noah, you want to talk about anything else on REIT before we jump into the City Hall project?
No, I think you kind of led in real well, Mayor. And I just point out simply that we had a positive month in REIT collections when we compare year over year. So we were up 18% compared to 2022. We had overall on the year, we're down 9% compared year to date, but we're still positive on our budget for fiscal year, and still represent 33% of our overall biennial budget. So we're still on track, still in like a good projection, even though our year over year is slightly down compared. And then the point that the mayor again brought up, I just want to highlight because it's going to feed into the next conversation, is the 800,000 which we budget each year is again split. That's a combination of REIT 1 and REIT 2 revenues. So $400,000 is budgeted for REIT 1 and $400,000 is budgeted for REIT 2.
Okay.
Jump to that next slide, Noah. And then, so the meat of this meeting tonight is really about whether or not we want to award the bid for the City Hall project. We unfortunately only received one bid. We had, I think, 7 companies pick up bid packages. We thought we were going to get 5 bids, and unfortunately we got 1, and it is 600,000, correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, over the engineer's estimate at $8.25 million.
Mayor, did you want
you're jumping
to
ahead
jump
in the agenda here.
Yeah, I'm just laying out why we're talking tonight. So
okay. Well, the next one on the agenda is an update on the Bay Street and the city. So do we want to go back to the agenda and talk about
that's fine.
Pedestrian pathway?
Yeah, and so as we were talking about REIT 1 and REIT 2, REIT 1 is where we're paying for the pathway right of way, and REIT 2 is where we will fund our construction dollars. And we've got balances for our estimated project cost in REIT 2 for construction. We are trending, right now we have, and I talked about this, they had the same slide at the retreat. We're a little less than $700,000 short of what we need for what we believe will be the right-of-way purchases. We have appraisals to support that number. We are on track to collect that amount this budget this year in 2023. So, but we just wanted to share that number of where we're at, because between the enterprise funds and REIT 1, that's how we would propose to pay for a payment related to City Hall improvements. So we just wanted to talk about existing commitments that we have related to REIT 1.
Yeah, and I think the mayor touched on the key point that, you know, we're tracking what we've obligated our REIT funds for. And REIT 1 is solely committed to Bay Street pedestrian path right-of-way acquisition at this point. And as soon as we've completed this phase, we would then have that money freed up for other capital projects that qualifies for. And so then that kind of leads us into, actually, I'll pause there and see if there's any questions from the councilman on this call.
Recording in progress.
Okay. I'm gonna
Okay.
jump to the next slide. No,
You're gonna have to turn your mic off.
yeah.
I can hear through you. I apologize.
Okay.
That's okay.
So overall on this slide, this is just a refresher of kind of what we understand about the project at this moment in time. So so far, the estimated cost for design is $565,000. Again, we just got the bids back with roughly $8.3 million. So that brings the total project cost up to $8.865 million or $8.9 million. Again, we just highlight how we had planned to pay for this project. And so we've already spent some significant funding from REIT 1 and current expense to get through design phase. And as we've talked over the previous meetings, we intend on issuing a bond to pay for the $8.3 million in debt. And so then this just kind of feeds into the next piece of the conversation. Unless, Rob, did you want to spend any time actually talking about the construction bids received, or just moving to the debt conversation?
Yeah, I think I highlighted that already. We got one bid. I mean, we're at the end of this meeting, we'd like a recommendation, you know, because we're kind of at a decision point here. Do we award this bid, even though we only have one? You know, this, from what I'm hearing in the construction world, you know, your electrical components, which our project has a lot of them in it, from the solar and the heating elements. Talking to contractors, glass is still, some items are, and we've got all new windows in our building. Those items are still running. Except the, what am I trying to say? They're appreciating, or they're not appreciating, but the inflation is affecting those. And so if we wait until the fall to put this back out, I'm not certain that we would get a better number. I don't know that it's going to get cheaper, because those elements that are still running, having supply chain issues and are running, you know, are very expensive, are major elements of our project.
So where did we advertise this project at? Was it
Chris can
widely distributed?
Yeah, it was Builders Exchange. Go ahead, Chris, if you want to speak to our advertising process and how we went about that.
Yeah, I would add is we obviously advertise in our local newspaper, but we also advertise it in the DJC, Daily Journal of Commerce. We had a 4-week ad period, and then we do utilize Builders Exchange in our own website.
And we did have 7 general contractors pick up plan sets.
Yeah, I think it was 8, but then we had one that said they weren't going to bid.
Yeah.
And then Chris, how many contractors do we have that you King gave a tour of? Because I know the hallway was full one day when you had that open.
Yeah, we have, I mean, it's more typical that you get the subcontractors coming in. They're doing a lot of the, the general contractor doesn't have a lot of their own forces doing things on this project. But I think we had at least, we had 2 general contractors show up, I believe. May have been 3.
And multiple subs.
What's the timeline for award? Do we have any time to consider, or do we need to award within so many days of opening?
Yeah, I forget what our standard, but I mean, we're gonna have 30 days or 45 days to hold on to our prices.
What we really, if we're gonna award, we likely want to do at the end of the month, no later than the first meeting in June. If we're gonna get going, we have elements like roof, windows and siding that we want to do in the summer months.
Right. The only reason I would even suggest something that if we've got a little bit of time, it might be worth reaching out to some of those who picked up packets but didn't submit a bid to ask why. Might be a piece of information that could help us. I'm comfortable with going forward with this one, but having only one bid, I think we must have done what our normal process is for advertising these kind of projects, and we gave what sounds like adequate time for people to develop their bid and submit a bid. So I'm not too concerned about that. But the fact we just got one, I don't know if it'd be worth a couple phone calls to see if it's just people are too busy or whatever.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's a project this big, to only have one bid is a little bit concerning. I mean, I don't want to slow it down. I definitely agree that as time goes on, it'll get more expensive, but that's kind of shocking.
Yeah, I think I'd be more concerned if only 1 or 2 companies had picked up bid packages. I think we can ask those questions, but we had 7 or 8 companies pick up general contractors pick up plan sets, and the majority, obviously all but one, only 1 bid. They had it in their hands, they looked at it, and for whatever reason chose not to bid our project. So, but we can certainly.
I think it would be valuable to figure out, why are they just all too busy, or this project just didn't fit into their normal, whatever. I think it would be worth asking the question at least, just so that we've done our due diligence.
Jay, you got a question?
I do. Speaking about the company.
Let me turn off mine so you can.
Yeah, speaking about the company that bid. Speaking about the company that bid, what has been our previous relation with them as far as, their work and what we've seen from them? That's would be my only concern, being that we only had 1 bidder.
Yeah, and we don't have built buildings normally. So I know that Rice Fergus Miller, though, our architect, and Chris, you can speak to this. That I know that they have experience with this contractor. You want to speak to the contractor, Chris?
Yeah, they're working with them on a fire station currently. They're the architect on the project that the contractor is also working on, and they have a good reputation. So they have no concerns. The architect.
So if you're ready to move on, I know that it's not ideal, and I recognize that. We'd like to talk a little bit of what a debt service payment looks like if we choose to move forward. We've got this would be coming from our REIT 1 funds primarily. I think it will be around, with our bonding costs, I took the lower end of this number, the 9 million, for our discussion today. And there's a pretty significant difference in that 5 years, and we can likely afford the 15-year payment. But that's definitely, while we need to award, if we're going to award, we need to do that fairly shortly. I don't believe we need to do our borrowing for probably at least 6 months, because we can cash flow the construction here and there's another reason when we get to the end of the discussion why we would want to wait on that borrowing, because we have some other projects that we'd like to get out to bid, and whether or not we have any shortfalls in those funding of those projects, whether we need to, we'd have an opportune time to add to a borrowing. So at $9 million at 15 years, we're looking at about a $790,000 annual debt service payment. And $100,000 of that can come from our enterprise funds, because the employees that work for those various funds reside at City Hall. So about 5% of each of the payment from each one of the funds is eligible, which leaves us about $690,000. Conservatively, and we talked about our budget of REIT of 800 and of $400,000 of it being REIT 1. We will have the pathway right-of-way funds by the end of the year. If we don't need to borrow till the end of this year, we wouldn't have a payment for another year out. So that said, in a worst case scenario with our conservative REIT budgeting, we would be subsidizing this payment to the tune of about $190,000 from our general fund. In reality, if REIT continues to trend the way that it does, our collections the last couple of years have been nearly $2 million, or about $1 million in REIT 1. And we could if that funding if that trend continues, that $690,000 would be eligible for REIT 1 funding and not at all touch our general fund. But and then I touched on projects that we got some great news yesterday. We finally got Department of Health's or is it Ecology or Health, Tony? Ecology's approval on our Marina Pump Station project. So we're working on we should be out to bid after the first of the month on that project, first week in June. And after we get the bids in on that, I'll sleep a lot better than I am right now on that project. So it'd be nice to have that information if we have a shortfall from the bids on that critical infrastructure, that any debt from that would be paid for from the enterprise fund. So it'd be nice to have that bid in hand before we go out and do the borrowing. We also have a well 11 out in the McCormick area we're wrapping up the design on that. Chris, when do you believe we'll be out to bid on that project? This summer?
Yeah, it's possible. Again, what are we waiting for? I think we have most of the permits in hand. I think we had the one from the outside agencies that we're just waiting on our own.
Yeah,
So
I think
we're
we
close to going out
have
there.
everything. We're just finalizing the bid documents.
So it'll be this spring or summer that we go out to bid on that also.
Right.
That project I'm not as concerned about. It's unlike the Marina Pump Station where you're digging a gigantic hole in the ground and you might find things you didn't plan for. The well's already drilled. We're building a pump house and buying pumps. And then lastly, we're finalizing the design on the Lincoln and Bethel roundabout projects. And we have the additional storm treatment elements related to the tire compounds that are going to cost us about $750,000 for the additional stormwater treatment. We don't have the exact number, the exact engineer's estimate, but that's our best guess at this time. And we still need to figure out how we're going to pay for that $750,000. It's stormwater and it's REIT 2 likely, but we need to figure out how to pay for that too. So these could be all part of a bigger conversation around the borrowing if we move forward with this and do a borrowing, late this year. So that's what I have to say. And then I welcome your comments or questions.
Mayor,
My
quick
only
question.
concern about borrowing later is that we just missed the window on the Feds increasing the interest rate once again. Don't think they're going to raise it anymore, but you never know. So
Mhm.
the longer we wait, the potential we have for higher interest.
Yeah. We're just not ready to borrow because we're not spending the, you know, we'll have spend down requirements on that borrowing. I mean, we could probably borrow in the next few months. But
Well, it's gonna take you a little while. You're not gonna just go down to the bank and get it put in your
correct.
checkbook. It's gonna take them a while to put this together. It's gonna take at least a couple, 2-3 months for them to put this together.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Yeah, and Marina is really the one that concerns me the most, and having that bid number on that, that's a massive project. So Sean, you had a question?
Yeah, just with these, project proceeds, the $9 to $10 million, what have you factored in for just change orders? I mean, I just, you're going to start opening up this building. Is there a percentage that we're kind of forecasting? If so, what's that number?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say that's a good transition for me. I was trying to catch up, but I've got slightly larger numbers overall that we need to deliver the project than was being presented initially. So if I could share my screen here. Let's see here.
And this, you're talking about the City Hall project?
Yeah.
Yeah, outside the fee of the bid, we're also going to have services during construction, permitting, the upgrades to the electrical for PSC that are going to add substantial cost to it as well.
Is my screen being shared at this time or?
No.
Good. Okay, share screen. There we go.
Nope.
There he comes.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so we still have, here's what we've committed to the design services. That's 564. That was accounted for. We have our permit fees at 46,000. This is the bid, which is a little over the engineer's estimate. So not a huge surprise, but we do have to pay sales tax on that bid amount because it's a facility. It's not not a road project. And then we have more professional services. We've got to pay for a upgraded electrical service coming from the street with Puget Sound Energy. And then I added a contingency in here. So this could be, I think we need to be prepared for this to be an $11 million project overall.
Yeah, but Chris, we've already spent the 564. So
Yeah.
10.5. Yeah.
And so you're using, it's really, really small, it's hard to read, but about a 10% contingency.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully we wouldn't need that on a large project like this. It's pretty predictable. We don't have things.
The only really unknown that we have, we've done our due diligence pretty well, is the sheeting underneath the siding, and we've planned for replacing some of it. We don't know how much water damage there is in the sheathing underneath. We're going to take the hardy board off of the building, and around the windows, we've planned for some of that being replaced.
Yeah, we're at 25%. So there's a possibility it could be a little more, but it's not a huge risk.
Beyond that, we're replacing a heating system, we're replacing windows, we're replacing a roof. We're not digging a hole in the ground. We shouldn't find, like Tremont or the Marina Pump Station, we shouldn't find surprises in the ground because we're not digging in the ground. And that type
we found a lot of surprises in the ground when we dug the hole for this building.
Yeah, we're leaving the building foundation alone.
Yes.
But it's a good point. We've got $900,000 in contingency that we hope we don't need.
So 10.5, so that last screen we were looking at, both of those numbers fall short of what we're believing we're going to need.
Yeah, so maybe Noah could just take a second look at using these numbers. I'll email this to you and what that means for our bonding and our ability to pay the bond, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
It looks like
that's
we're
fine.
well within the ranges, so it's just a little tweak, but at least we'll have better numbers.
Yeah. And we had 10 million on there too. I grabbed the $9 million number.
Okay. So we're not far off. We're really off on the contingency.
Yeah, we're within the range, I guess is how I approach it. The difference between the 9, if we could go back to the other screen, Chris, if you could.
Well, that's you, Noah. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, there we go. So if you look between the 9, we'll just take one term, We'll take the 15-year term. If you look at the 790 versus the 875, so $1 million is costing us about $85,000 in additional debt service payments. So if you move from 10 to 11, it's reasonable to assume it's going to cost us $85,000 of additional debt service payments again, and they'd be allocated amongst the utilities as well as the REIT One First and general fund. So I think it's within the ballpark for the discussion purposes.
Now, do you remember what the debt service payment was for this building initially?
I don't. I could pull it up and report back to you on it.
Yeah, these numbers, these payments really don't scare me in the sense that we were paying around that much, if I remember correctly, when we initially built the building for a debt service. So we were able to survive that without, and I don't think we were using the REIT funds. We were mostly doing it from general funds. So
Yep.
Having another source, not to mention, we now have the stormwater fund, which we didn't have when we financed the original building. So
Yeah, our interest rate was likely higher than that back 20 years ago. But the borrowing wasn't as large because it was about 6 or 6.5 million to build City Hall last time. And now we're roof, windows and siding and electrical upgrades, and we're $10 million.
were we smart to build it when we did?
Yeah.
The other thing to remember about this project is about $4 million, about half the cost of the project is we recover that in energy savings.
Yeah,
So,
good point.
Well, just look
Well,
at,
again, I'm fine with everything other than I just think we ought to do our due diligence on making a couple phone calls to some of those others, just so that we can say that we looked into the fact that we only have one bid.
and I was just gonna say, if we can cash flow at the 15-year term, certainly just adding 5 more years is gonna add, 1.5 to $2 million, depending on how much we borrow. It'd be nice to be able to do a 15-year and not a 20-year.
Agreed. Okay,
So provided we give you good answers, are you comfortable making a recommendation to move forward with awarding and bringing this to on the 25th, or do you want something different than that?
well, you're gonna bring forward something on the 25th that would award the contract. Is that what you're saying?
That if that's your recommendation that we move forward,
Well, that's what you would like to see as far as meeting all the timelines.
that would be ideal. And
I would
I'm
love
okay
it.
with that if you could get us the answers personally. So, sorry, Sean.
No, I just like where John was going. We got time, we got 2 weeks. It'd be great just to hear why only, you got 7 other people that showed up. It'd be great. Obviously, we'd all love to have 2 or 3 bids on this deal. So maybe we can find out that answer before we vote on, unfortunately, the low bidder.
there was one local company, and I did speak with them. They wanted us to put it back out to bid because they weren't paying attention. And they said this project is complex with all the electrical and solar, and they weren't comfortable just throwing a number at it. But is that fair to the one company that was responsive? I'm not certain that we're gonna, in 6 or 9 months from now, if it's going, if we're gonna save anything by it's likely gonna cost us more.
Talk to me about that. If we were to reopen it for, what would be the time frame where people might be able to respond? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks? I mean, what timeline? Because you could say
No,
it may not be fair to the one that responded, but we could also say it'd be more fair to our constituents that we did have competing bids.
We'd have to reject everything and start over. We can't just open it back up.
Right. And so how long would that take? What would that add to the timeline by doing that?
Well, we would not bid, not construct this year. We would add another month or more, because we would go back out to bid. And we would miss this construction this summer. We would, if we were going to do that, we would wait till the fall and put it back out for next construction season.
Well, you would be delaying award by what, 60 to 90 days?
Well, we would, but we would miss this construction this summer. Because they got to put they got to mobilize, they got to put scaffolding on our building, demo it.
How long was it open the first time? How long did you?
A month.
Said 4 weeks. Yeah.
So in theory, we could do this and delay it by 4 to 6. We still might miss your window, Mayor, to your point, but if we did reopen it, it could be as short as 6 weeks to be able to get right back to where we are today.
What's your thoughts there, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
Jay
to
has
go to
to-
council first on the 20 end of the month to reject all bids. And then we've got to wait for that, and then we could re-advertise it, and that's going to be another 6 weeks, so more like 2 months.
Jay has a comment. Let me get off here. So go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable in waiting and putting it back out if we miss the summer season. Besides the additional cost, I do worry about the additional damage to the building. If we're comfortable with the bid and the company, then I would move forward. I would go ahead and move forward with it. If I'd appreciate if the mayor would answer the questions that John and Sean have put forward, but I think that can be done in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, you agree, Chris, that you can do some outreach maybe later this week and find out why folks didn't bid?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll hear back from everybody, but maybe I can talk to a couple different contractors, get through and just have a conversation this week.
I think, a couple, the more the merrier, but at least a couple of them, I think, would be certainly enough to give us an indication, other than I was just asleep at the switch and didn't meet the deadline like what the mayor heard. So
Yeah. We had one other one to tell us ahead of time they weren't going to bid, and they said that it just wasn't their thing.
okay, well, that's good to know.
Yep.
We're not
Okay.
going to change that aspect by going out to bid again. So that's why I say that's good to know. So.
Yep.
All right, so we can go ahead and recommend tonight that we ask the city to bring it forward for the next meeting. Between now and then, though, we've asked for staff to reach out and make a couple calls just to find out why we only received one bid, and hopefully we'll have that information by the time we ask to take a position on this.
Yeah, and then I think Noah needs to get to work on really starting this borrowing process. I think it's gonna take months to put this together, and in the
Yep.
meantime, we'll get these bids on these other large projects, and hopefully we don't need any more money. But if we're doing a borrowing, it's something we should be talking about if there is a shortfall, because we can't not award. We have a low interest loan for the majority of the Marina Pump Station project, and if we will lose that funding if we don't proceed on the project. So we're already on a tight window on it. As
Yeah,
far as
well, let's not confuse the issue with multiple projects. I think but the only issue I was going to suggest, it seems a little ironic that we're going to award a contract before we have the financing in place, but I don't know that there's really an issue about whether or not we're going to get it or whether we can afford it based on, I'm assuming, Noah, you've done the research on what's available now theoretically with interest and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I
So-
think we're in good shape as far as borrowing, and you'll see over the next couple meetings. I'll
Yeah.
bring forward the bond documents, the bond obligations, the reimbursement resolutions. So we have the finance team in place. We've been talking. We were just waiting for the bid results to come back, and then they came in slightly higher than the engineer's estimate. So we wanted to talk with you all first to see
Yeah.
if you're comfortable with us kind of going forward. So it sounds like we are. So I'm gonna keep working with the finance team to get those documents moving forward.
Okay, Jay, you okay with that? Seeing a thumbs up. Sean, you okay?
Yep, I mean, ultimately it needs to be done. You can just look at the outside of that building, and time is not our friend right now.
No,
No.
true.
Well, maybe even on the inside of the building.
Yeah, that's too.
That's the real concern.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything else that we did not cover or need to cover?
Nope, that was all on the agenda.
If that, then I guess we'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
See y'all
Thank you.
shortly.
Yeah, see you soon.
Thank you.